Next up, we have Pierre from the Computer Science Department of the University of Manchester. Pierre did his PhD at the University of Brittany in France, then joined with CHERITech, where he's also a research assistant professor, and now he is at the University of Manchester.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me well. So hi, I'm Pierre from Manchester. So this is one of the projects of the DSBD in which we are looking at small operating systems named unikernels and what are the benefits we can get from CHERI. So the idea is that investigate on a real hardware platform what are the security benefits we can get from CHERI on these very small, minimal single address space operating systems that are named unikernels. In particular, we look at the benefits of compartmentalization in hybrid mode, the benefits of the spatially safe version of the C language we can get from FlexCAP. And this is kind of a bonus benefit that we added along throughout the project, which is more like compatibility oriented. How can we support multi-process application in an operating system that is supposed to have only a single address space, right? So I'm going to give you a very high-level overview of the progress of the project on these three aspects. So I'm not going to dive deep into the technical details, but feel free to come and speak to me or Alistair, my student, that will be manning our poster outside if you want any particular detail. So we started the project. Okay, so maybe before that, a bit of background on what are unikernels. So in a lot of scenarios today, you are deploying an entire computer system to run a single application, right? Say you want to have your website running in the cloud. You're renting a virtual machine at a cloud provider, say AWS, which runs on top of an hypervisor. You're installing your application, say Apache if you want to run a web server. It has some dependency like libSSL. And then you have like a Linux distribution. So most of the software running in this scenario is actually useless, right? It's broad. It makes your attack surface large. It makes your resource consumption quite large. So one way to address this problem is unikernels. So with unikernels, you compile your application, the dependencies, and a very small operating system layer into a single binary that contains both kernel and application, and you can run that virtualized on top of an hypervisor. Right? So application, dependencies, and very small operating system layers. It is not unlike some embedded operating systems. All of that compiled as a static binary and running generally in a virtual machine. So unikernels are single purpose. One instance of the operating system will run one and only one application. If you want to run multiple applications, you run multiple unikernels. So this is a library operating system model. In terms of benefits, they are very lightweight, right? So they boot in a few milliseconds. They have in the order of megabytes in terms of memory consumption for the operating system. I mean, so this is quite interesting in many scenarios, and it reduces the attack surface. It reduces the resource consumption. And a unikernel is a single binary. And it's also a single address space. So you have the app and the kernel in a single address space. And with traditional unikernels, there is zero protection in there, right? Everything runs on x86 in ring 0 with full privilege, including the application. The rationale being there is only one application, so there is no point in protecting applications from each other with things like page table. It has the cool benefit that system calls are function calls. So they are super fast in terms of latency. Now, why is it interesting to study the benefits of CHERI for unikernels? So first of all, the single address space nature of unikernels aligns quite well with the protection model that is suggested by some of the CHERI papers, saying we want protection within a single address space for various reasons, including performance. To be fair, the lack of isolation inside the unikernel is quite concerning. You know, today we slowly we are not seeing application anymore as a single unit of trust, right? You have some libraries that are less trusted than others. You have some part of the applications that are manipulating data that is more critical to the security of the applications than other parts of the application. So it's true also for a unikernel, right? Zero isolation is quite concerning. So this motivated us to study bringing both the benefits of compartmentalization and safety, these benefits that we can obtain with CHERI inside unikernels. So we started with compartmentalization. So the project is well on its way now. We actually have only 6 months left. We started 1.5 years ago, and we had a look at compartmentalization. So what we did is that we ported our compartmentalization-aware operating system named FlexOS that we built for a previous research effort. We first ported it to run in hybrid mode, which is basically, at first in ARM64 mode on Morello. So this was a relatively small engineering effort. We developed a compartmentalization library that leveraged the hybrid mode of CHERI with protection domains defined by the DDC and the PCC. And we developed, so of course, when you compartmentalize, you have communications between compartments and amongst other things, the exchange pointer. So there need to be some form of data sharing. And this is actually where most of the research effort was focused. And we ended up developing 2 methods for sharing data between compartments. And I'll say a few words about these that are different trade-offs in terms of security, capacity to scale to many compartments, capacity to scale to large compartments, as well as engineering effort. How much is it going to cost you to port some existing software to use our compartmentalization library? So we studied the performance, security, and engineering effort of our prototype with 2 popular applications. So the first method to share data was basically what we thought was intended by the designers of CHERI, which was, okay, so data is passed as pointer, just switch these pointers to capabilities. In that way, when compartment 1 passes the pointer to its own memory to compartment 2, compartment 2 gets a limited access to a subset of compartment 1 memory, and it is very fine-grained, it's a capability. So it's nice in terms of security, right? There is no oversharing. It's nice in terms of performance because we get very fast security domain switches. There is no data copy, but we realized that in terms of engineering effort, in some scenarios, it was quite complicated because if the amount of pointers, so if compartment 1 consists in a lot of code, so not only you need to switch some pointers to being capability, but all the pointers that are derived from this pointer need also to be capability. And then you have all the problems of pure cap for a subset of the pointers of your compartment. If you're doing arithmetics with them, you need to modify stuff. So in terms of engineering effort, it explodes quite fast when you have big compartments, right? So we looked at the second method, which is kind of a trick. So what we do is that we look at pairs of communicating compartments, and we make the DDCs overlap to create a shared memory area in which we allocate the shared data. So this actually scales much better to large compartments, but it doesn't scale to a lot of compartments because you can only have pairs of communicating compartments, right? So this is Unicraft, which is a unikernel on top of which we built FlexOS that we ported on Morello, booting on the Morello board. we looked at the performance of two applications. So we are quite limited here because we are running bare metal. We don't have drivers. This is a custom operating system. So we don't have networking. We don't have disk IO. We just have a RAM disk. So we looked at libsodium. We isolated a few security critical functions using the switch pointers to capability method. And we find the overhead to be quite acceptable. We also looked at SQLite, and we isolated the application from the file system. So I'm not going to go into the details of these results. I don't really have time, but there is a link to the project website at the end of the presentation, and you can check out the papers for which we produced these results. So a second thing we studied is PureCAP. So we ported Unicraft, which is a popular unikernel, to run bare metal on Morello in PureCAP mode. So with various modifications to the source code of Unicraft, quite similar to what we've seen in the first presentation of this session. We ported once again libsodium and SQLite to run in PureCAP mode on top of the PureCAP kernel. And we measured performance. So we found that SQLite is quite slower compared to the standard ARM64 execution. We didn't dig that much to understand why the numbers are like this, why libsodium has such a low overhead compared to SQLite. Possibly SQLite is much more pointer intensive. But at that stage, what we asked ourselves is, how can we get a paper out of this? Because as scientists, this is what we want. We thought, like, in terms of PureCAP effort, this was a lot of, a good amount of engineering, but not much science for a paper. So, so both are custom benchmark. Libsodium, we adapted the test suite to repeat some operation a certain number of times, and for SQLite, it's a SQL benchmark that we wrote ourselves. I think it's a bunch of insert in a loop. Okay. Because of the limitations of running bare metal, and because the Beehive hypervisor was recently released, we were able to port PureCAP Unicraft to run virtualized. We adapted the VirtIO PVIO driver in Unicraft to actually get some networking running. We ported Redis. So this is Redis running in PureCAP mode on top of PureCAP Unicraft. And at that stage, we asked ourselves, okay, how can we bring in a bit more science to get a paper out of it? And we had this idea of supporting multi-process applications. So by definition, unikernels and single address space operating system, because they only have one address space, they don't support multi-process applications. There are some efforts, some recent efforts that basically support multi-process application by spawning new instances of the operating system, which becomes, it's not a single address space operating system anymore in some sense, right? So we asked ourselves, can we support multi-process application, which is basically, copy on write POSIX fork in a single address space? And we believe that with Cheri we can. And the idea is to emulate processes with threads within a single address space, locate the memory code and data of each simulated process at some specific locations in memory. Upon fork, copy the memory of the parent for the child, start a new thread to execute the child. So of course we want to do that on demand, copy on write. And the two issues with this kind of intuitive solutions are, how do you isolate emulated processes? And how do you correct memory references? Because when you do the copy of the parent into the child, you're going to rewrite references. So some of them are relative. Think about stack accesses, they are relative to the stack pointer. So, this thread having its own stack is going to work. But if you have absolute references, like a pointer variable, if you just copy it like that, you have the the child that still have pointers to the parent, and that's not good for isolation, right? So this would need to be rewritten. And we think that Cherry can help with respect to these two limitations, I mean, these two challenges. So regarding memory references, we assume position-independent code to maximize the amount of relative memory references. And for absolute references, we can actually scan the tag memory to have some magical pointer tracking system at runtime, which is quite awesome. And for the isolation, basically, we rely on PureCAP, and it becomes a twofold problem. So when you copy the subset of an address space that corresponds to an emulated process, you need to make sure that you are not leaking any capability that would let the parent, the child access the parent part of the address space. So, you know, that means like just do the capability fix up properly. But also you need to isolate the kernel from the emulated processes, because now the kernel becomes an ambient authority. So there is a bit of modification to the system call interface that needs to happen. You need to bring in user kernel isolation again if you want this to work on. So we are in the process of implementing this solution. Hopefully we can submit a paper soon. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So in summary, we look at various aspects of single address space operating systems running on top of Morello, compartmentalization in hybrid mode, SafeC and PureCAP, and now we are looking at compatibility too. Please come check out our poster. Alistair is in front of the poster, and he did all of the hard technical work that I described in these slides, right? He's the real hero here. You can check out our plus 23 paper that relates to the compartmentalization work, and also, of course, the project website. Thank you very much.
Any questions for Pierre? Well, I probably had a question actually about temporal memory safety.
For the compartmentalization efforts?
Yes.
Yes, I believe each compartment gets its own memory allocator. So, you know, there is no leak possible between compartments.
Because they all live in their own. Because they all live in their own. So you indicate that there's no temporal memory safety problems because they all live in their completely own thread.
So there is, it's not, are you, when you say temporal memory safety, do you mean like compartment A would free some memory that would later be reused by compartment B?
That would be one example.
Yeah, so if you give each compartment its own memory allocator, of course you have problem of like fragmentation, but you know that it cannot happen.
Let's thank Pierre again. This marks the end of the second session of CHERITech.